Hello everybody, my name is Cool. I'm bringing out this video of me talking about a board game, and this is going to be talking about all the extensions and modules for Clinic. Clinic is this game here, and Clinic is, for those who don't know, is an efficiency puzzle game, essentially, that can play 1 to 5 players, or sorry, 1 to 4 players. I played it 1 player, and I played through all the modules that I have currently, which is about 44 modules. And for those who want the highs and lows of the game, especially if you already know the game, I will let you know my favorites and my least favorites, starting from the base game. And once again, this is just mostly for people who want to know up top. So let me go and start the music in the background before I forget. But for the base game, there's 4 modules inside of that one, and I like the fire extinguisher module, and I disliked the workaholic module. For the extensions, the first extension, there's 13 modules if I'm not mistaken, and I really liked the pillars. The pillars was really good. I like the pillars a lot in this one, and I really disliked the underground utility work, which blocked your location. The second extension had the best overall showing in my opinion. This one has some decent highs and some stinkers in there, but the second extension I think was the best overall showing. So if you want to get just one extension for this game, get the second extension. That's like the most positive way I can tell you that. It gives you a lot of flexibilities, but the ones that I liked in here for sure are the coffee maker, and the one I thought was the weakest was the events. The third extension was the one that added the most time wasters and kind of added some ick to the game, if you will. But that ick is very much welcome, especially in a game to where you're trying to be efficient and you can kind of play the same game, you can solve it. But my favorite thing inside of this one was the triage, to where you don't know what your patients look like. You have to kind of on the fly adjust and adapt to it, so that's fun. I really dislike urban design. I also really dislike cigarettes. I also really dislike ghosts. I also really dislike therapy dogs. I also really dislike gift shops. Like I said, there's a lot of things I disliked in here together, but I feel like if you throw in a piece or two from this one plus some other extensions like this, nearly all the things inside of this box plus some of the things from this box will be a nice balance in my opinion. Anyway, moving on. The fourth extension added the basement, and this one, it didn't add much, but I think what it added was fun, and it lowered the kind of skill cap, if you will. Take that how you will. And the fifth extension was pleasantly impactful for what small stuff it added, and I really liked one of the modules, the module it added, which is double tiles. That was really fun. And also it's a nice little puzzle that I gave you there with another alternative board. Okay, cool. So that's the kind of the over the top, or 1,000 eye view, whatever you call it. I lost my words apparently. Of all these things, let me go ahead and get into a little bit more detail for those who want to see the rest of the video. So, starting off with the base game, I'm not gonna open up the base game box. The base game stuff is generically here. I will open up these boxes to show you the components and show you what you're getting. But in the base game of this game, there are 4 modules, and the 4 modules that it gives you, I feel, are very nice. I don't think they make the game extremely better or extremely worse. I think they're all kind of there. And those particular extensions, just in case you want to know, I'll grab a sheet. Here we are. Alright, sorry, add some stuff over here. Documentation. And those particular extensions here are the ones up top on the screen there. So the one where it says Clinic at the top. So you have blood transfusion extinguishers, workaholic doctors, and zombies in a clinic. I really liked extinguishers. I thought it was a lot of fun. It gave you another way to earn money, and it was kind of clever how it makes you lets you interact with the system. The workaholic doctors, I was not a big fan of, as I said before. The fact that you have a doctor who can do a cool thing, but they're a one and done situation is kind of annoying, and it kind of takes up some of your money. Like it costs you money to hire the doctor, and then they go away after they do their special thing. So that was kind of meh. So that's the reason why I kind of named those. Also, you can see there's only 4 extensions inside of that one. The next one is so moving on from there. First, we'll look at the box here, since I have everything very neatly packed away. And I don't know whose idea it was to put these board games on the table, but here we are. It was my idea. So inside of this box, you do get a decent amount of stuff. And part of me wants to show the stuff that you get in the box, just to show you that it's not like it's chock full of stuff, but there's stuff in here. And inside of this stuff, there are, I think, 13 modules, is what I said before. Another 13 modules, one of them is kind of basic. It just gives you a 4th floor. So it gives you another floor to build on top of, which is fun. And the most complex one, in my opinion, is probably the underground utility work. for that reason, I don't like it because it's very restrictive. It basically takes up some of your spaces that you can build on and says you cannot build here and you cannot park cars here. And in a game to where the building space for this board is pretty tight already, like this is all you get to build with. And the game, if you play with the utility work, like I said before, basically cuts off these spaces, so it will put like a little pattern on the board, and it says you can't build here. And that's kind of, for a game as restrictive in building as this game, and for a game where every action counts, you have literally 18 actions to play the entire game. It's really hard sell. So I think the underground utility work is really bad in my opinion. The second really bad one in my opinion is also the obstetrics, only because I think playing it solo is not good. Playing it with people, I feel like it could be better because it's kind of a catch-up mechanic. The person who is in the lead will be the one who faces the consequences if they don't deal with the obstetrics. So because of that, when you're playing solo, you're always dealing with it. So the way I played is I rolled a dice, and if the die was high, then I did not get this to show up. If the die was low, then I did get it to show up. But because of that, it kind of made it not really good for solo. The janitors were also kind of useless, in my opinion. It adds an additional cost, which it's not great to begin with, but also it kind of forces you to use the janitor, so I wasn't too much of a fan of that one. But like I said, going back into the box, as I said, I wanted to just spend a little bit of time looking at stuff in the box. You get a little bag, you get some boards. These are the boards for various things. This one's for the virus, which was, when it happened, it was cool. The ambulance, which I think the ambulance is really nice to kind of sneak into a game. It gives you another source of patience. Here's a janitor board, and you also get, now granted, I've kind of restored all this stuff, as in I put it back in the box so we can look at it. So they're not in the original packaging, but the box is effectively like, you know, like maybe 30% stuff and then like 70% air. But yeah, you had the elder care or the hospice, which I think the hospice was fun. I like the puzzle that the hospice gave you. The hospice, since we're here looking at it, what it does is essentially gives you four hospice people that you have to deal with. Every player gets their own little hospice board, and they will give you money at the end of the round, $2 per person left here. But at the end of the game, you lose 5 points if you have not cured them. In order to cure them, you got to spend a lot of time to cure them. But it's nice because it gives you a nice income. It gives you a nice source of money while you're playing the game early on, which is always welcome. But you have to deal with them eventually, and it costs time to deal with them. So you kind of have to figure out when's the best time to work with them. I like the puzzle that gives you. It's kind of like a nice middle-of-the-road challenge. The one that was a big letdown was pharmaceuticals. It was a big letdown. The more I played it, the more I'm like, this is actually kind of lame. This is actually not that great. But as far as what it gives you basically a free doctor. But you have to use as a nurse, and there's a lot of restrictions on how you have to use it. And because of that, it's kind of not really all that worth your time. Here's your underground utility work, by the way. This one, you put these on your board, and they block those spaces, and it's just all kinds of not fun. And then finally, the pillars. The pillars, which actually they're in this bag. The pillars are really good. I like the pillars. They're a free build. They give you some extra flexibility. It's really nice. All right, enough of that. I think I spent enough time on that one. There's some other stuff in there too, but yeah, I'll let you all go watch the videos where I talked about it in way more detail. So that's the first extension. Moving on to the second one. So, cascade here. So on to the second extension. So the second extension, which is here. The second extension, whoops, wrong button. The second extension included some of the stuff. I think I quoted the second extension being the best overall. If you just want to get one extension for this game, only get the second extension. I think you have a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of extra flexibilities. It gives you another puzzle to solve, and it makes it a little bit more fun overall, in my opinion. But do keep in mind that when I say it makes it a little bit more fun, it does make it that I am saying that it gives you a lot more that you can do. And because it's giving you a lot more that you can do, it kind of breaks the puzzle of the game to where the puzzle of the game is trying to figure out with those 18 actions that you get the entire game, what do you prioritize, what do you get, when do you try to do this, when you try to do that. And I do also want to acknowledge that the game dynamics change a lot. The game dynamics change a lot when you're playing with people. When you're playing solo, it's basically your own puzzle, you deal with your puzzle and you move on. But when you're playing with people, you gotta time things, there's a whole other factor, another chaos factor if you will. Anyway, but I'm kind of speaking about all this from the solo perspective only. So in this one, we have some modules that I think my favorite was the coffee maker. The coffee maker, what it does is it basically makes it to where when people enter into that room that has a coffee maker, it makes that room cost 0 time. And for those who have played the game, you know that time is costly. It costs you victory points. For every 3 time you spend, you lose 1 victory point. So the coffee maker is really nice and really welcome, especially if you have other modules that waste time, like things in the 3rd extension, which we're going to talk about later. But one of the cool things this one gives you a board for a new appointment board, and that new appointment board is neat because it gives you this extra puzzle. So when you're playing solo, I really enjoy this solo. Like, this is really fun solo. Definitely not my top one inside of this box, of course. Like, coffee maker is my top one, but it gives you the option. It gives you another thing to try to deal with, which is the pediatrics, the babies, and then it also gives you another board option, which I like this board option a lot because what ends up happening is when you're playing solo, you have access to these 3 here, as you can tell by the single player spot there, and it becomes to where it's not clearing itself. So if you really want to spend a lot of time building and maybe not focusing too much on admitting patients, then you can do that, but you're going to end up clogged up because this is going to be full of patients and you're only going to be in 1 new patient every time, every round. So if you really want to clear this up, you really have to spend time admitting patients and actually taking that action. Whereas on this side, it's a lot more forgiving. Even on the normal side, this is a normal board here. It's a lot more forgiving to where it will clear out at the end of the round. So it gives you a little bit of time to kind of cycle through some patients. Whereas if you put on this side, instead, you have to cycle. You are the cycle. If you don't cycle, then you're gonna not have fun. So I really appreciate that because it kind of forces you to get out of that bubble of, you know, just kind of taking advantage of the normal beats of the game and makes you play the game a little bit more. Also, the 7th round, I'm not a fan of the 7th round. It was fun, but I think it gave you too much time to do everything. And this game, I think, excels when it restricts you from doing everything. It kind of makes you choose, do you want to do this or this? That's where the fun in this game for me comes up, because I have to solve that puzzle. Which one's more efficient? Which one will be better down the road? Which one will be more impactful? Stuff like that. So having a 7th round kind of eliminates that, and I think is like, meh. I did talk about the events. The reason why the events are probably the worst in this box, and to clarify, this box has a lot of good things in it, but the reason why the events are probably the worst is because for the first 3 rounds, you can see what's coming up, but then for rounds 4, 5, and 6, it's when the round starts, you flip over the card, and then sometimes the cards don't really do anything. Sometimes the cards that flip just break your entire strategy, and that's fine. You gotta adjust, you gotta adapt, and you know, not all plans are perfect, but on the same token, the delta, in my opinion, between the ones that will really wreck your game versus the ones that were so useless that it's like, why is this even in the deck, is pretty huge. Pretty huge. So for instance, this is actually one of the ones that's very inconvenient. You can deal with it, but I think it's can possibly wreck somebody's game, and this is basically going to break your conveyors. So it's going to make it to where you have a little bit less of an efficient time moving your people around during that time phase, and you spend more time. Because you spend more time, you're going to lose a lot of points, and you really don't want to do that if you don't have to. And the one that was kind of useless, the specific one that's really useless, unless you have a very specific setup, is this one, the heart attack. As it's written, I think it's not useful. It doesn't do anything. But if I were to reimagine it, I would just make it to where if you admit a patient that round, they immediately become red. I think that changes it up. That gives incentive to admit white patients that round. But as it stands, when this card flips at the top of the round, if you have a white patient, they become red. The problem is, it's at the top of the round, and your patient, if you had a white patient from the previous round, they became yellow, so you no longer have a white patient, so therefore this doesn't really trigger. I don't know. It might be maybe the way I was interpreting the rule, maybe I misinterpreted it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Overall, the events were kind of a letdown. I was kind of looking forward to them doing some stuff. The surprise hit for me in this one was the morgue. The morgue was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. The morgue is essentially if somebody dies, for the first 4 people that die in your clinic, they will get added to this board instead of dying. You will not lose any victory points, and you get $32. and that gets added to your bank account, not into your money that you can purchase points with, because in this game you purchase points at a certain point with the money that you earn that round. And that's really cool because you can do some really neat stuff, like set yourself up so that way on round 2 or 3 you'll have a payout of $32. Yeah, you won't get any victory points for it, and yeah, you're stuck with the car that's there, but that can really set you up. Like getting $32 early on, that injection of money can make it to where your future rounds can be really, really, really impactful. You can do a lot of cool stuff. So the morgue was a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting much from it. I thought it was kind of annoying, but I forced myself to interact with it, and afterwards I was pretty impressed. Janitor's disappointment, I think I already saw about that earlier, but I'll just kind of reiterate. The disappointment with the janitors is that they make conveyors cost money, and they only do that so the janitors are useful. Otherwise the janitors are useless. So the fact that they had to add a penalty to make the janitors somewhat appealing is kind of meh. I'd rather just not play with it unless you just want a little bit of restriction. But then again, having some kind of limiting factor and having some kind of sense of chaos and some kind of sense of worry or something to kind of make you rethink the game is needed in this game, because otherwise the base game is solvable, as in you can find a solution, do that every single time, and no matter how the patients come out, no matter how everything comes out, just as long as you have just enough points to manipulate the patients, just as long as you have enough doctors and nurses, you can do whatever you want and always win the game. So having that sense of chaos is welcome and is needed, but the janitors is not the form of the chaos that I would like to see it in. So that's why the janitors are kind of a letdown. And I think are they on my list? No, the events are on my list, but the janitors are a close second for sure. All right, cool. Enough about that box. Let's move on to the next one. There's other stuff in here too that's like pretty cool, but I'm not gonna bother talking about it right now. Once again, check out the video. Move on to the next one. Third extension. Third extension was the Box of Horrors, and I don't mean that in the flattering way. The Box of Horrors, as in the Box of Terrors. The third extension has. Bring this back up. The third extension has the air conditioners, cigarettes, fire trucks, ghosts, gift shops, temp agencies, helicopters, public toilets, therapy dogs, triage, wheelchairs, and urban design. Actually, I forgot about the public toilets. The public toilets were actually kind of okay. So I think this one had about 14 extensions inside of it. Don't quote me on that. But with these extensions, with these modules, I should say, with these modules in this extension, I think the worst one, the absolute worst one. I mean, there's so many. I named so many. Urban Design 2.0 was really bad. Cigarettes was a close second. Ghost was a close third. Therapy Dogs was a close fifth. Gift Shop was a close fourth. I put that in order because I changed my mind on those. The reason why those are so bad is because they add a lot of time waste. And specifically for Urban Design 2.0, it's not a time waster, but it's really hinders how you build. So it's good that I have the board out here, just to emphasize what I mean by that. And you'll definitely see this in my playthrough. When you do the Urban Design 2.0 card, you get a card like this, which is a card that says build your building like this. And you can rotate it, you can do some other stuff. There's some things that can help you alleviate the difficulty of this. But with that said, the primary restriction on this one that makes it difficult to deal with is that you're not allowed to build above the first floor. What I mean by that is that this is your clinic board that you normally get. This is your clinic board, and you're normally allowed to build on the second floor and the third floor at no additional cost. I mean, the additional cost is when you build stuff up higher, it costs more money. So just for those who don't really know the game or not familiar, just kind of stumbled upon the video, when you build something on the base floor, it costs $2 to build the thing, and if you build specifically this room, which is a supply room, it costs $0. But if you want to build it on the floor higher, it costs $1 more. And then supply room costs $1. And if you build on the second floor, which is there, it costs $1 higher still. So it basically gets more expensive as you build up. But because of these Urban Design 2.0 cards, in all of them, all the Urban Design 2.0 cards, they all have the same restriction to where they give you a shape. So this one you play on the harder side of the board, but they give you a shape, and you're allowed to break some of the placement rules, which is fun, but you're not allowed to build above the first floor. So you cannot build on the second floor. And that's really difficult to kind of deal with, especially considering that the way I played this, I played with all of the extensions, all the modules, as you say, inside of this box at the same time. That was obviously a bad idea because there's a lot of time wasters, there's a lot of really negative things, there's a lot of really restrictive things in this, there's a lot of forced builds in this particular thing, and this particular extension. So all that together put it in a bad spot. But I think in general, urban design is not good. If it's specified that I'm allowed to build helipads or satellite dishes on the second floor, that's different. But what I'm trying to say is that the surface area that you have to build is already very limited. And then you restrict it further by saying that cannot build on the second floor. It's like, this is untenable in this current situation. Now, the way you're supposed to play with these, you're supposed to mix these with the other urban design ones, the urban design 1.0. And the urban design 1.0s are just basically a shape, a building shape, and then it gives you points based on that if you do it or not. You can always choose not to do it, but the penalty for not doing it is losing the points there. And the benefit of doing is those points there, with red being the hardest and green being the easiest, which is why the points are kind of flip-flopped. You lose 5 points or 6 points if you don't do it. You get 4 points if you do, because it's easier. But even still, like, the question is, why would I ever do a urban design 2.0 when urban design 1.0 exists? That's just me. So that's why I think this one's the worst in the box. I did mention some close seconds because they're a little bit more restrictive than they should be. The cigarettes, for sure. They force you to send somebody over to the cigarette machine and to buy a cigarette. And there's another restriction on the cigarettes to where if a doctor or a nurse or an orderly smokes 2 cigarettes the entire game, then they're removed from the board and you lose their car, so you lose them. Whereas if a patient smokes a cigarette, just 1 cigarette, then they disappear, they die, you face a penalty for it, which is you lose 5 points. It's pretty restrictive, but the game forces you to have at least 1 person go smoke a cigarette per round. As in, you must have somebody go visit the cigarette machine and then go back. And going to the cigarette machine, you're spending time. So for every space that you move, so if the cigarette machine is over here and my person's over here, then it's going to be 1, 2 to get a cigarette, and 3, 4 to come back. And it sucks because you have to walk somebody from where they are to somewhere else. You're just padding time, and it's just not enjoyable. It's just not an enjoyable experience. So the cigarette machine was a close second on the worst. Triage, talking about some positive here. Triage I liked a lot. Triage gives you these gray cubes, and you basically have a bag of gray cubes and this dark brown cube. This dark brown cube that you see here is a critical patient. They're basically a level 5 patient. So just to clarify, with patients, we have over here, normal patients, we have level 1 patient, level 2 patient, level 3 patient, level 4 patient. This is typically what you see. And if you don't heal a level 1 patient at the end of the round, then they become a level 2 patient. If you don't heal a level 2 patient at the end of the round, they become a level 3, and so on and so forth. So a level 5 patient is a patient who's 1 step above a level 4. They're more difficult to treat, but they give you more money. So if you treat a level 4 patient normally, you will get $32 to your bank that you can use to buy points and stuff, and plan your rest of your stuff. If you treat a critical patient, which is the black patient, or the dark brown patient in there, you will get $40, which is a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and you can use it to buy victory points. The caveat is that you must have at least a red doctor plus a nurse, or an orange doctor plus 2 nurses, or a yellow doctor plus 3 nurses. As you can see, you can level up your doctors up and down for those who know the game. But the point I'm trying to bring up is that it's fun because the triage bag, you don't know what color patient you normally get. If you get a critical, it's a critical. You'll know it's a critical. But otherwise, you have to run this gray patient to your triage room, and then if they go to your well, not this room, but there's a different triage room, not this triage room. You have to run that patient through your triage room, then you draw a random patient from the patient pool bag, and then you find out if it's a white, yellow, orange, or red patient, and then you have to adapt from there. I like that one a lot because it kind of keeps you on your toes, and it makes it to where you can't just perfectly plan everything. You really have to kind of put your faith in, okay, I have the right doctors, I got the right amount of nurses, I'm going to admit 2 patients, I'm going to take a risk, roll the dice, take a gamble. And I think that kind of chaos is really welcome. I like that kind of chaos. That kind of chaos is fun. So I do really give that one high accolades. I think that's definitely my favorite one in that box for sure, because there's a lot of not good ones, especially when you put them all together. I think if you blend those with some of the benefits that you get from the second extension and blend some of the bad ones that you get from here, I think it'll be a nice balance of a game, balancing for chaos and everything. Okay, cool. So we'll move on to the next 2 boxes because they're pretty short. The fourth extension has the basement tiles. The basement tiles, I don't have much to say outside of it. It was cool. I feel that it lowered the skill floor of the game, which is not a bad thing for sure. I don't think it made the game easier, but I think once, especially if you have played as many games as I played of this, like, you know, 10, 15 games of this, I kind of already know the general flow of the game. Basically, you want to get patients, you want to let them get sicker so you can earn more money, and then your quest is to heal the patient at the correct time so you can maximize your points, but also pay for your stuff still. So as a result of that, I've already figured out the game at this point by the time I reach this box, or at least figured out how I want to approach the game. Let me be more specific. And because of that, when I play with this, I was able to kind of see immediately the strategy for the basement tiles, and then I feel like I maximized them within my own strategy approach, and it became to the point to where it became too easy with one of the modules, specifically the boiler room. If you just build your clinic in a certain way and put a boiler room under it, you just have 1 billion points. You just have $1 billion. You just will. You just have all the money that you ever need. So because of that, it became kind of meh. Although I think it was nice when it added, but it became meh. Also, one last thing that made it very lackluster, in my opinion, is the basement has a restriction to where you're not allowed to build any tiles down here except for entrances. And that, I think, was the killer for me. It would be nice if I can build modules down here. Maybe it costs me more to build normal modules down here, but you're not allowed to build any modules from any other extension here. You can only build basement tiles. And it's like, that's such a harsh restriction. Like, so I have this basement down here where I can build these special tiles to do this cool thing, and I've kind of figured them out, but I would like to try to, you know, build like a functional clinic down here. Maybe I lose points for building a clinic, but I get money for building it here. I don't know. Like, I feel like I would house rule this to make it to where if you build a functional clinic down here, the game will pay you $3 for building a functional clinic, but at the end of the game you lose 5 points for having a functional clinic. I don't know, it's like something like that would be cool, because then it kind of incentivizes you early on to invest in it, but it'll let you know that, hey, you're going to lose 5 points for doing this, but you can do it. You know, it kind of gives you that push and pull, that balance. So I think that would be nice. But as it stands, it's kind of meh. I mean, it's cool, it's neat to look at. I don't think it's $24 neat, but I think it's neat. So take that how you will. Moving on to the final one, which is the 5th extension. This one I think is top tier. Relative to the 4th extension versus 5th, this one's top tier because I think this one added a very necessary thing to the game, which is some kind of variability between players. The 5th extension adds the special tiles, double tiles, 9 double tiles, and these double tiles will be drafted from players essentially, and the players will be able to draft the tiles that they want, and every player will have 2, so you get 9 of them. And there's one that's in here twice, but you get 9 different tiles. They're all unique except for the one that's doubled, and these will give you some kind of way to break the game or kind of change the rules a little bit based on their room. And the neat thing about it is that you can really build your clinic around your tile. So I think in my gameplay, without spoiling too much, I had the double clinic tile and I had the double parking lot tile, and I was able to use that to my advantage. I was able to leverage that a lot to really change how I approach building, because normally I will want to build, you know, certain things and reach certain goals in my build, and then I want to build some parking lots around it. But in this case, I don't need to build parking lots. So the question becomes, what do I do with the rest of the money? What do I do with the rest of the actions? How do I build the rest of my clinic around it? And, you know, I adapted and I built something different that I normally wouldn't build. And then also considering some of the efficiencies that these tiles give you, this one allows you to have one doctor heal 2 patients that are the same. That's fun. You can plan around that. You can maybe admit more patients than you normally would. This one here allows you to park 12 cars, which, for context, in a perfect situation, if you have an upgraded parking lot, which I think I talked about this extensively in the video that I did, so go check that out. But essentially, just to give you a preview of what I talked about. In a perfect situation, this is kind of better, but this is objectively better. And what I mean by that is that this costs you $2 to build total, and this costs you $2 to build just this one, and then you have to spend $2 more to build this one, and you have to spend $2 to upgrade it to that side, You have to spend $2 more to upgrade it to that side. So if you consider the action itself $2, if you consider the cost of the thing $2, then that's essentially $8 to do this. It's not $8, sorry, $16 to do this, because you have to spend $2. Sorry, it costs 2 actions to flip it, so that's going to be $4 total to do that. I don't know, it's getting confusing. What I'm trying to say is that this is just more cost effective. This is just more time effective because you only have 18 actions in this entire game, and doing this will cost you at least 2 of those 18 actions. So it costs you 2 of those 18 actions to do, and you can see it's where, you know, being able to do this for free as a free action, you pay the money, but it's a free action and it's cheaper. It's nice. So something as simple as that really changed the game, because now I don't have to plan on building parking lots. I can just deal with this, let this exist and cover my parking for a while, and then work on advancing other stuff. So this is really fun. It gives every player a different approach. This one gives a special park that will cover more space, and also for every place that gets every treatment room that's next to it that has a patient treated in it, they'll get $5 for you. This one can reduce your costs. This one you can change the patient's affiliation to what they need for their services. There's a whole bunch of neat stuff in this one. So I really do like this one. And also, I haven't even talked about this. There's a challenge board. If you feel this game is so easy that you figured it out, you know everything about this game, go ahead and try this board. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's not doable. But the thing it does is it puts a park in the middle, and then it gives you 2 entrance spots here. And it kind of makes you really, really consider, what do you build, where do you build it, and why do you build it? Yes, it's pretty restrictive and it ties your hands, but I think it ties your hands in a good way, and you don't have to play with it. You can choose to not play with it. There's also a much harder side if you want to just, I don't know, if you like pain, go for it. I would never build on this side. This side is ridiculous, but for many reasons. But the main thing is that this option exists, and this does exist in the 5th extension. So I think the 5th extension is almost worth the $24 asking price. I think 24 is the MSRP. I don't know if 24 is what it sells for normally. So you might be able to get it for like $20, $15. I don't know what the actual pricing is. I didn't look it up. Apparently I didn't prepare. But what I'm trying to say is that this is really welcome. It changed up the game, it changed the flavor of the game. It might change up your strategy for that game. Instead of building the same old clinic to score the same old points the same old way, you can just get you get a different 2 of these, and it might change your plans completely. It might not. You might not never build it. You might have just taken these to deny it from somebody else. Overall though, I think the 5th extension, for the size of it, it kind of, you know, it's kind of punching above its weight for sure. So the 5th extension I think is really good. Okay. So, I've spoken extensively, this video's gone pretty long, so let's go ahead and get to our conclusion here. Playing through all of these extensions, playing through all these extensions and all the modules inside of the extensions, I have learned a lot. The main thing is that it's nice that this game gives you a lot of options to augment the game, to make it more difficult, make it more easy, to make it more enjoyable, make it less enjoyable, make it more pain-inducing, make it less pain-inducing, whatever you want to throw in there. Maybe force you to do things, maybe not force you to do things. It's kind of a sandbox of a game. Like, it's kind of like a design your own game at this point. So with all these modules, you have the ability to augment the game to what you want it to be, to bring your own joy to the game. With that said though, I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little disappointed in this because I feel the base game is solvable. And the solution to that solvability was to add multiple modules in different boxes. And honestly, I feel like if there was 2 extensions that had everything, that would be great. But the fact that there's 5 extensions, I think these ones run about $35 or $40 a piece. And these ones run $24 a piece. Once again, don't quote me on that, please. Actually, let me go and look it up just so I can give you guys accurate information. Because I think on Capstone Games it still has it. Yeah, there is. But the asking price for these extensions is a little bit steep, if you know what I mean. Like it makes it to the point where it's like, I'm not sure if it's really worth recommending purchasing at the purchase price, at the asking price. But then again, you know, I don't want to disparage the people who designed the game. I don't want to like say don't buy the game, it's not worth it. I think it's worth it. I mean, I paid for it. But then again, yeah, it's kind of a difficult ask, depending on how you look at it. So looking on Capstone Games, which is where the game is listed right now, for Clinic, the base game, MSRPs for $80, but it usually goes for $50. That's where I purchased it at. So I purchased it for $50. Extension number 1 goes for $50. Oh, okay. So this one goes for $50. Expansion 1, and expansion number 2 goes for $50. Expansion number 3 goes for $50 MSRP. Expansion number 4 goes for $24, and expansion number 5 goes for $24. I don't think any of this is worth that asking price. $50, yeah. I feel like I've gotten more than $50 worth of fun out of the base game, especially with the 4 modules it comes with. And for the first expansion, I don't think it's quite worth $50. For the second expansion, I think it's very much worth $50. But if you could find it for $35, it's definitely worth it. And the rest of them are kind of a grab bag of maybes. So that's kind of like my biggest takeaway from all this, is that yes, I do enjoy the modules that come with this one, and yes, I do enjoy the fun that I got with this, and I made a whole video series about it, so I guess I benefited from this whole thing holistically. But I'm trying to say is that I know this is like a kind of a solo company, as far as I understand it, and it's hard to print things out, and you know, the print runs are not long. I don't know, whatever excuse people want to throw in here, or whatever statement people want to throw in here, whatever justification I should say, just to give it a more genuine title. I just don't know if, yeah, I could not recommend this for, what's this, 80 plus 150 plus 50, so I could not recommend this for $280. This package here, as I played it, as I experienced it, as I enjoyed it, as I had fun, as I cried, I didn't cry, but I could have cried sometimes. I feel like this is a solid 150 package. So maybe the extra $100, like I appreciate the designer, so sure, I paid my dues. And yeah, here's an extra $100 for creating the game. Thank you. And this is also a reprint. This is also the deluxe edition, so like a second edition, to say, not a reprint. So I guess take it with a grain of salt. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling at this point. All right, my point I'm trying to bring up though, I don't think this is worth $280. I think this is worth $150 solid, sure. 200, you can make arguments for 200, but 280, oof, 280 is that's a tough sell. $50, definitely got $50 worth of fun out of it. $50, maybe more, 35, 25-ish. And then the rest of it is already here, so. Okay, cool. All right, I'm just retreading old ground. So that is it for that. If I had to go through all the extensions and name my single favorite module, very difficult for me to do. My single favorite module out of all of these, I think if I had to pick only one, as in if I had to pick only one module to play, I would have to pick Triage, which is unfortunate because I spent a lot of time ragging on how much I did not like the third extension. But I think Triage was the one that added the most to the game. Like having that situation to where you don't know what the patient is, and you have to you need money. You want to make sure that you can keep your hospital running, so you have to hedge your bets. It's okay, do I have the correct doctors? Do I have the correct nurses? Well, I don't know. You got to bring the patients in first, and then you got to find out if you get a critical. That's guaranteed $40. But if you don't get a critical, and maybe you get two level 1 patients that give you $16 total to heal them, maybe that's not enough money for you to make your bills. And it kind of raises the stakes. So I really like the stakes that this one raises, which is why I say Triage is definitely my top single module. If I had to pick one amongst my favorites that I mentioned so far, the overall solid box, in my opinion, is the second extension. Although arguments can be made that the reason why I like this one is because it gave me a lot of levers to pull, and it gave me a lot of ways to kind of do more than what the game probably intended for me to do. So once again, take that with a grain of salt. Okay, cool. So that's it for this whole entire video. If you want to see me talk about each individual module, go check out the videos. I literally spent a lot of time talking about the modules at the end of the videos. So unfortunately, this is not that conclusive single video. I will implore and encourage and hope that you all go check out those other videos to see at the very end. And it's also time-stamped. At the very end, I spent a lot of time giving my opinions on the modules, how I felt about each one, and just kind of going down the list. So yeah. So hopefully this series was useful. Whenever I get the COVID-19 and Biohazard extensions, which are the last 2 that I don't have currently, they're still in the mail somewhere, I will play through them, and I will do videos and add them to the series, and then do reviews on those too. But yeah, outside of that, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, I will see you all whenever.